evening and welcome. Since the officers for this year have not yet been elected, I will preside over the initial portion of the meeting as the superintendent. So this is new for me. Okay. The reorganization of the school board members will take place during routine matters. Once those elections are complete, the newly elected officer will assume responsibilities for leading the remainder of the meeting. So thank you so much for all of your attention and cooperation as we proceed. If we could please stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to call this January 13th, 2025 meeting of the Salem Community School Board of Trustees to order. Never done this before. Okay, before we proceed, I will verify that a quorum is present. Yes, quorum is present, Ms. Jana. At this time, we are going to read a resignation that we have. So this is from Jason Cockrell. I hereby resign my elected position of the Salem School Board at large pursuant to Indiana Code 5-8-3.5-1, effective immediately. So at this time, we will need to take a vote to accept this resignation. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Rebecca White, Steve Motzinger. Now we will take a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Okay, 5-0. That vote has passed. Okay. Do we have any comments from the audience at this time? No. Okay. Okay, at this time we would like to recognize some of our students who are part of our elementary robotics team, the BSE Circuit Breakers and the BSE Circuit Breakers Squared. These students will be receiving ROAR Awards tonight for their outstanding performance at their recent competition. And their coaches, Ms. Michaels and Ms. Johnson, are here. And would you like to say a few words before we recognize them?
Sure.
Okay.
What do I have to?
I can just read your comment because I have it. If you would like for me to. Yes, if you'd like to speak into the microphone there, that would be lovely.
Just have that. You guys want to grab one? So this was the first year that we had 2 robotics teams that went and competed at regional competitions, circuit. They won it twice and also received a special award from the head referee. That was the Enthusiasm Award. So the Motivate Award basically says that they embody the values of First Lego League and they realize that they can accomplish more together than they can by themselves, and they express the core values that Lego tries to instill in all the teams. So we were very proud of them this year.
Wonderful.
Right. And I have always said that the awards that we tend to get seem to be the Motivate Award or the Core Value Award. So we're raising good humans, good kids at Salem. They represent the school very well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your commitment to coach. And students, we had such a good time. Ms. Hayes and I were able to be there for one of their practices. So we saw firsthand how hard you have worked on your presentations, and we're so, so proud of you. And if you could receive any award, that's the award we would like for you to receive, is the core values. So at this time, we're going to call out your names. If you'll come stand up front, then Ms. Humphrey and I will bring some awards to you. So we have, for the Circuit Breakers, Mia Wade, Lincoln Court, Kent Gettelfinger, Warren Bailey, Ellis Schmaltz, Ava Temple, Elena Tedrow. Then for the Circuit Breaker Square, we have Sage Miller, Kaylee Dine, Emily McIntyre, Maddie Troth, Piper Stevens, and Corbin Bayer. You want to turn and face your parents? There you go, and we will give you some special You know what that means? One heart. Yes. Congratulations. And then I think Ms. White would like to get a picture, so let's do this. Can you turn this way and maybe make a couple of rows? So turn this way. Turn like this. Turn like this. And this way. Scoot that one up. One up. And you go behind. Yep. There you go. All right.
Do you mind to stand like that?
And if you would like to leave at this time, or if you want to stick around for routine matters and a nice long board meeting, you're more than welcome to do so. Thank you again.
Congratulations.
Hi, Ava.
I know. And then there was 3.
That's the best part of the meeting time, right there.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Now we'll move to routine matters. The floor is open for the election of new officers. Do we have any nominations for president?
I'll make the nomination.
Okay.
Allison Jean.
Becky White.
Oh my goodness. I have this so in my head. Oh my goodness.
So Becky White has made the motion to nominate Allison Azell for president. We have a motion for Allison. I need a second to the motion. Rodney Bruff. He beat you. Are there any other nominations for president? Okay. There are no other nominations for president. We will now take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 5. Okay. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The motion carries 5-0. Now we'll take nominations for vice president.
I'll make the motion for Becky Humphrey.
Okay. Rodney Bruff makes the motion to nominate Becky Humphrey as vice president. So we have a motion for Becky Humphrey. I need a second to the motion. Becky White. Okay. Becky White made a second to the motion. Are there any other nominations for vice president? There are no other nominations for vice president. We will now take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. 5-0, Ms. Jana. Motion carries. We will now take nominations for secretary.
I'll make a motion for Becky White, secretary.
Steve Motzinger has made the nomination for Becky White as secretary. I need a second to the motion. Rodney Bruff seconds the motion. Are there any other nominations for secretary? There are no other nominations for secretary. We will now take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations to our new school board officers for 2025. Allison Azell, president. Becky Humphrey, vice president. Becky White, secretary. The date of the board meetings must be established at this time. These meetings will be the second Monday of each month at 6:30 p.m. at the Administration Building located at 500 North Harrison Street in Salem, Indiana, zip code 47167, unless otherwise advertised. I need a motion to approve the school board meeting date, time, and place.
I'll make a motion.
Rodney Bruff made the motion to approve the
Second.
school board meeting date, time, and place, and Steve Motzinger made a second to the motion. We will now take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The motion carries 5-0. I will now turn the meeting over to Vice President Becky Humphrey, who will conduct the meeting in Allison Azell's absence.
Okay.
I'm going to move this over your way for later.
Okay. And she will love that.
Yes.
Well, that's giving her too much.
It's a lot of fun.
Okay.
Okay, so next, it's approval of minutes of the executive and regular session of the December 9th, 2024 school board meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Rodney makes the motion.
I'll second.
Becky White makes the second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Okay, 5-0. All right, next is approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Steve Motzinger makes the motion.
I'll second.
Becky White makes the second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Okay, that motion is approved 5-0. Okay, approve claims today.
I'll make the motion.
Becky White makes the motion. Need a second?
Second.
Ty Sweeney seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved 5-0. Okay, approval of personnel recommendations, and I'll read all these. Teresa Brewer, resignation from SMS Cafe. Steve Crane, temporary second semester 2025 6th grade science teacher. Jennifer Moblin, long-term sub, mild to moderate classroom. Brian Motzinger, resignation from SMS teacher. Amanda Pride, resignation from SCS speech language pathology assistant. Allison Cook, medical leave from January 2nd to January 16th, 2025. And then Mike Hart moved from sub bus driver to full-time driver.
I'll make the motion.
Rodney makes the motion. Becky White second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Okay, approved 5-0. Approval of ECA recommendations. I'll read all these as well. Devin Collier, 5th grade boys basketball coach. Lee Bowling, volunteer assistant baseball coach. Danny Bowling, senior, volunteer assistant baseball coach. Joel Altemeyer, volunteer middle school assistant wrestling coach. Tim Anderson, volunteer baseball assistant. Wade Pennington, volunteer baseball assistant. Brian Reardon, volunteer assistant baseball coach. Can I have a motion? Maxon makes the motion.
I'll second.
Steve Motzinger seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. 5-0. Okay. Okay, I'll read all the donations too. All right. Consider approval of donation to BSC for $250 from the Washington County Farm Bureau. The donation is to be used for Christmas assistance. Consider approval of donation to Salem Community Schools for $600 from the Canton Lions Club to be deposited into the clothes closet of each school. Consider approval of a donation to Salem Community Schools for $1,013 to be applied toward the school board Christmas dinner. Consider approval of a donation to Salem Community Schools for $1,000 from Nelson Asphalt Seal Coat to be used as needed. Consider approval of a donation to Brady Shrum for $100 from an anonymous donor. These funds will be placed in the counselor's fund and be used for Christmas assistance. Consider approval of a donation to the Disney Club for $150 from John Jones Auto Group for an individual student's trip to Disney. Consider approval of a donation to Salem Middle School for $425 from Dowling Family Photos. The donation will be divided amongst the boys and girls ECA basketball accounts. Consider approval of a donation to Salem Community Schools for $500 from Midwest Transit to be used towards the Transportation Department Christmas dinner. And consider approval of a donation to Brady Shrum Elementary for $800 from an anonymous donor. The donor requested that these funds be used for scholarships for students in need for the St. Louis trip. Can I get a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
Rodney makes the motion.
I'll second.
Becky seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. 5-0. All right, let's see. Consider establishing a board of finance for 2025.
Yes, in the past, Salem Community Schools has established a Board of Finance at the beginning of each calendar year. Historically, I didn't bring my notes with me, so I'm going to wing it tonight, Mrs. Myers.
Okay.
I've done it a couple times, so I think I remember most of it. Typically, historically, traditionally, the board president and the board secretary have served as the officers of the Board of Finance. And their function is to periodically review the claims of financial status. Of course, you do that every month anyway, so you're always up to date. But there's also a requirement under Indiana Code for you to receive a report, which I've prepared for you tonight, and I'm going to give everybody a copy of that. I'll try not to over-linger with it. There'll probably be extras. The Distressed Unit Appeals Board established 7 variables to determine the fiscal health of the school district. Their report is based on a school year cycle. I've taken the 7 variables each year and based it on a calendar year. Now, tonight, this report has the 7 variables. 4 are completed, and we're waiting on closing out. We're a little behind. We're not behind necessarily. It's the end of the year. It's Mrs. Hamilton's doing really well, but she's still working on the process, and we've had some weather. So as soon as she closes out the year, the 3 variables that aren't completed will be completed, and I'll email this to you. And this is a public document. If anyone else is interested in seeing it, it'll be available to them as well. But I would start with the first page. It speaks to, it's in Enrolled Act 549, where the superintendent or the superintendent designee provides a written report, which is in front of you during the annual meeting of the Board of Finance. And what I've done is taken calendar year data beginning in 2016 and taken it up to 2024, with the exception of those 3 variables that we're still waiting on the end of the year report for. So the first of these variables is average daily attendance, what's called ADM. So that we're tracking ADM from 2016 to 2024, looking at the number of students, which is what average daily membership is. And you can see that we're in a declining mode, and we have been for several years. And then the change from previous years is the third column, and the percentage of change. While we decline, funding is based on each student and the number of students we have, but the state has been increasing the funding per student each budget cycle. So we're keeping our head above water. And Mrs. Myers constantly looks at ways to maximize our savings and maximize our expenditures. So, it's a constant effort to be as efficient as we can without really sacrificing the programs. We have outstanding programs at Salem and outstanding personnel.
Dr. Thurston, can I say for the people out there that's watching, though, from 2023 to 2024, the retention of students is 97.3%. So you've kept 97% of the kids that came here in 23 came back in 2024. So
we're happy about it. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, that's a positive.
That is a
That's a huge positive.
Absolutely happy. Yes, absolutely. Salem is an outstanding school district. No one can counter that. I'd like to move to the second page, which are the fund balances for the Education Fund, Operations Fund, Debt Service Fund, and the Rainy Day Fund. And beginning in 2016 with the General Fund, Education Fund, we've been growing the last 2 years, 23 and 24. Some of that's due to the increase in state funding, which we appreciate the support for that. Now in 2024, that number is the $1,805,059. I'd like to stress that some of that is the curriculum materials money that we transferred by state mandate at the end of 2024. So there was a change in the code, and we had to take our curriculum materials money that had come from fees and move that into the education fund. So but we're in good financial shape, and we're moving in a positive direction, especially in the operations fund, where as you can see in 2023, we ended with $358,639, which was an increase of $266,000 from 2022 to $658,000 in 2024, or almost $300,000 increase over last year. And we've been able to do that with the impact of the property tax caps, which challenges us, but we continue to find efficiencies that help us meet that challenge. The next page are the last two funds, the debt service fund, which is used strictly to pay the lease rentals for the projects that we do in the district. The 2024, we saw a decrease because we have high bond payments with these new bond issues. So, we're going to be in a positive position in debt service. We always have been, and we will be. The amounts may fluctuate from year to year, but the one thing is those debts will be paid, and the state will make sure that we pay them if we run into a challenge. So we're not overly concerned there. We will be fine in debt service. Rainy day fund, we made some transfers this year, moved a little bit of money around in the last few months of the year, and we're trying to build the rainy day fund to use in situations that might arise that are unexpected, that would protect the operations fund. Do you have any questions so far? I know this is exciting and fascinating
Well,
material.
I appreciate you telling us the different, different departments that the money, so it's not all just one big pot where you can just pull from here and
No,
pull
it's
from there.
not. No, thank you. That's. Yeah.
It's sometimes a little confusing on that,
Yes, thank you. That's right, because you're exactly right. That's a good point, because certainly debt service fund money cannot be used to bargain contracts. Operations fund money can't be used to bargain teaching contracts. So you have a little flexibility for rainy day, but we don't have a lot of money in rainy day right now. If we were one of the Indianapolis schools, we might have $4 or $5 million in a rainy day fund, but we're not at that point. So, but thank you, Mrs. White. That's an outstanding point. The next one, the annual deficit surplus, I need to have the end of the year reports, and I will provide that as soon as I get them. Next page, the fund balances as percentage of expenditures. I need that data as well. The next page, tuition support per ADM, is the first column, of course, are the calendar years. The second column is the average daily membership numbers. The third column is the amount of money that the state provides per student in the education fund. And then the fund expenditure per ADM is when you take the amount of the education fund and divide it by the ADM to arrive at our fund expenditure per ADM is just slightly higher than the tuition support but we still have a healthy cash balance, so we're not struggling in that regard. Where in previous years we've been slightly below in the fund expended per ADM versus the tuition support per ADM. We'd like to see the state continue to increase the tuition support for students, but we're not going to hold our breath in that regard. So anyway, any questions so far? The next page is another category, the revenue by type. I need the end of the year report. I will update that and email it to you as soon as I have it, and it's available to anyone in the public who would like to have a copy as well. Last page is the general fund salaries and benefits as a percentage of the education fund expenditures. And then you take the general fund, education fund column is the amount of the fund that year. In 2024, the education fund was $11,742,000. Salaries and benefits in 2024 amounted to $9,146,302, which is 77.89% of the education fund. In previous years, we've been, that's a little lower than what we've seen in the past. You'll see in 2022 it was 78%, but it has been as high as 87%. And in recent years, more senior members of our staff have retired, and there's been a lot of, with retirements come younger staff members and lesser salaries, so we don't expend as much. So that helps us. Before the state, you can see before the state changed to the Education and Operations Fund, all salaries were in the general fund, and there were many years where we were at that 85% category. So we're trending well with that. Any questions on that? Okay. That is, there's no action required. This is a report, it's information. And as I said, when we close the calendar year 24, I'll complete those 3 variables, email you copies, and copies will be available to anyone that would like to have them. So there's no action on this item, it's just information.
We do need to make an action on the president and the secretary.
We do, thank you. Yes, on the officers, I was separating that. Thank you, Jana. Jana's exactly right. So if we could get a motion to approve the president and the board secretary to be officers for the Board of Finance, that'd be good.
I'll make the motion.
Rodney makes the motion. Becky White seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. So that was that. That was all of that. So we're ready for 16. Okay. Consider approval to appoint a representative from Salem Community Schools to the Redevelopment Commission.
Yeah, so Washington County Redevelopment Commission was established, I believe, in 2006. You may have heard of a TIF district. That's the Redevelopment Commission is the governing body over a TIF district. And several years ago, they amended the statute and determined that, the legislature determined that there needed to be a non-voting member of the school board appointed to that redevelopment commission. The reason is TIF districts kind of mess with everyone's funds because money gets allocated, property tax money gets segregated away and directed to a TIF district, so it's not used for budget purposes of the county or a school district or whatever. So the Mark Day was this board's designee for the last 4 years, and he faithfully attended the meetings of the Redevelopment Commission, of which there are probably only 3 or 4 a year generally. But it's a non-voting position, and I sent around an email, and everybody from the old board got it. Ty would not have gotten it, and of the old board, Becky White was the only one who expressed an interest in sitting on that, which makes me sad because Mark was so interested. But
Sad because I am interested? Or
no.
Explain yourself, Tommy.
No one else was. that you were the only one who was in, not because you were, but I mean that nobody else cares about what we
Stepped
do.
up.
I was gonna say,
He stepped up.
Brownie.
I'm just going to stop
Okay.
talking before I dig the hole any deeper. But I am the attorney for the Redevelopment Commission. So, so anyway, the appointment is not made by you all. The appointment is made by the county commissioners. But the county commissioners always want us to submit a name for them to appoint. So we would like to, I'd like to have some approval to submit Becky's name, if that's acceptable to everyone, to the Redevelopment Commission. Yeah, let's go
I'll make a
ahead.
motion.
Steve makes the motion. Rodney seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Okay, I will notify the county auditor to put this on the agenda for the commissioners to appoint Becky White.
Okay.
And that she's our designated member.
Okay. Consider approval of resolution for 1003 flexibility waiver application.
Yes, so I will explain that, and then hopefully, if it passes, we can sign the resolution tonight. So the IDOE does allow several flexibility waivers, and one of them is for instructional time. And we have found it very, very valuable for our teachers to participate in professional development, but it's really, really hard to find the time. So what we've been doing is we've been using our time after school with our slightly earlier dismissal, but that's very choppy and it's only 30 minutes each day. And we do have 2 teacher work days built into the calendar, but those are work days when our teachers prefer to be working on records and reports and setting up their classrooms and things like that. And they've been very gracious when I have asked them to participate in professional development on those days. But I also know that that's very taxing on trying to prepare for a new semester and a new start to the school year. So what the 1003 would do for us is we can apply to alleviate some instructional days and give those for professional development. And I'm not in favor of taking away instructional time from our students, but I am very much in favor of our teachers having time to, number 1, learn more about our data, number 2, grow as in collaboration, especially our high ability, our special education, and some areas that we don't get to spend a lot of time in. And our biggest thing is always aligning our curriculum maps and making sure that we have vertical alignment between our grade levels and across our schools. So I'm asking for the waiver to be signed for 4 instructional days. We would like to do 2 PD days in the fall and 2 PD days in the spring. Our students would still have 176 instructional days, and we still are way over the instructional minutes that are required by the state of Indiana. So if you agree to that, we would like to submit. That's no guarantee that will be approved, but this is the first step.
I'll make the motion.
Becky White makes the motion. Rodney seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign.
Like that.
5-0.
You're doing great. Like,
You did great. You did.
and
We're waiting.
you're doing great.
All right. Next is consider approval to void and deposit back into the original fund the outstanding checks for the Salem High School.
I'll make that motion.
Steve Motsinger makes the motion.
Second.
Rodney seconds. All in favor, raise your right arm. Opposed, same
Jinx.
sign.
Or next you'll be saying, raise your
Passes
right
5-0.
foot.
Sorry.
What works too?
Yeah.
Next time it might be flipped. All right. Consider approval to void the outstanding checks for the Brady Shrum Elementary. Rodney makes the motion. Ty seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right. Next is a consider approval to void the outstanding checks for the Salem Middle School.
I'll make the motion.
Becky makes the motion. Steve seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right. And consider approval of conflict of interest forms.
So moved.
Steve Motsinger makes the motion. Rodney seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Now for your favorite part of the meeting.
Okay, we have several policies that will be first reading tonight, beginning with policy 0131.1 bylaws and policies. I'm going to read the first and last sentence of these policies. No actions required tonight. This is the first reading. We'll come back next month, second reading, and ask for approval. Beginning with this policy, the board shall adopt bylaws and policies for the organization and operation of this board and the corporation, and ends with the board may adopt, amend, and or repeal administrative rules of order for its own operation by simple resolution of the board passed by a majority of those present and voting. Next, we have policy 0142.2, oath, which begins, each newly elected, re-elected, appointed, or reappointed board member shall take an oath of office administered by a notary public or other qualified person not later than 30 days after the beginning of the term of office, and ends with the oath must be signed by the board member or the person who administers it and filed in the circuit court clerk's office of the county containing the greatest percentage of the population of the school corporation. Next, we have policy 0167.3, public participation at board meetings, which begins, the school board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school corporation matters, and ends with no commentary is made that would distract either the board or members of the audience. Next is policy 1521, personal background checks, references, and mandatory reporting of convictions and sustained child abuse and arrests. The policy begins, to protect students and staff members, the school board requires an inquiry into the personal background of each applicant. The superintendent recommends for employment on the school corporation's administrative staff, and ends, it's a long one, and ends with, the superintendent shall obtain a review of each reported conviction or a substantiated report of child abuse or neglect and shall recommend appropriate action to the board considering the risk to members of the school community presented by the continued employment of the administrator who was convicted or the subject of a substantiated report of child abuse or neglect. Next is policy 8121, personal background check contracted services. It begins, to protect students and staff members, the school board requires an inquiry into the personal background of each contractor, subcontractor, and employee of a contractor or subcontractor who is likely to have direct, ongoing contact with children within the scope of their contracted service or employment, and ends with, the superintendent shall obtain a review of each reported conviction or substantiated report of child abuse or neglect and shall recommend appropriate action to the board considering the risk to members of the school community presented by the continued employment of the employee who was convicted or the subject of a substantiated report of child abuse or neglect. Next, policy 3121, personal background checks, references, and mandatory reporting of convictions and substantiated child abuse and arrest. This policy begins, to protect students and staff members. The school board requires an inquiry into the personal background of each applicant. The superintendent recommends for employment on the school corporation's professional staff, and ends with, the superintendent shall obtain a review of each reported conviction or substantiated report of child abuse or neglect and shall recommend appropriate action to the board considering the risk to members of the school community presented by the continued employment of the employee who was convicted or the subject of a substantiated report of child abuse or neglect. Next is policy 2431, interscholastic athletics. This policy begins, the school board recognizes the value to the school corporation and to the community of a program of interscholastic athletics for as many students as feasible. And ends with grievances regarding the alleged violation of Indiana Code 20-33-13 concerning the participation of transgender girls on athletic teams or sports may be filed under policy 2432, grievance procedure for violation of state law limiting participation of transgender girls in athletics. Next, we have policy 2432, grievance procedure for violation of state law limiting participation of transgender girls in athletics. And this policy begins, the school board provides the following grievance procedure to address grievances for violation of the state law limiting the participation of transgender girls in athletics as required by Indiana Code 20-33-13, and ends with the school corporation shall not retaliate or otherwise take any adverse action against a student for reporting a violation or bringing a civil action for a violation of Indiana Code 20-33-13. Next, have policy 2435, driver education, optional policy. Begins, if the school corporation offers a driver education program, it shall be provided in conformance with applicable laws and the Department of Education rules. And ends with, enforcement of these standards shall include an appeal procedure to provide recourse for any student who feels that the student has been unfairly treated. Next is policy 2464, programs for high ability students. And it begins, excuse me, in accordance with state law, the school board shall develop and periodically update a plan to provide appropriate educational experiences to high ability students in the school corporation in grades kindergarten through 12. And ends with the superintendent shall develop administrative guidelines which shall include those for valid identification, curriculum development and implementation, and assessment of the learning outcomes. Next, I have policy 3120.02, adjunct teachers. Begins, the school board supports filling all teaching positions in the school corporation with certificated employees, but recognizes that there may be times when it's necessary to employ persons who have not completed their certification to teach. And ends with, an adjunct teacher holding a permit issued by the board is not a school employee within the meaning of Indiana Code 20-29-2-3 for purposes of collective bargaining. However, the use of adjunct teachers is a mandatory subject of discussion between the corporation and the exclusive representative of its certified employees. Next is policy 3120.11, making public hearing before commencement of collective bargaining and public meeting before ratification of tentative agreement. And it begins, the school board establishes the following policy for the public hearing that state law requires be held prior to the commencement of collective bargaining with the exclusive representation of school corporation teachers, and ends with not later than 14 days after the parties have reached an agreement. The board shall post the contract upon which the parties have agreed on the corporation's website. We've done that over the last two contracts over the last 4 years, ever since this legislation was enacted were introduced by a local representative of, or a local resident as representative. Now, the next policy, 3220.02, supplemental payments for teachers, begins the school corporation authorizes the superintendent to issue a supplemental payment in excess of the salary specified in the school corporation's compensation plan to any teacher at the discretion of the superintendent. And ends with such a supplement is in addition to any salary increase permitted by Indiana Code 20-28-9-1.5B. Next is policy 5420, reporting student progress. It begins, the school board believes that the cooperation of a school and home is a vital ingredient to the growth and education of the whole child. And ends with, upon the parent accepting the offer to meet, the teacher shall meet with the parent for the purpose of discussing the student's statewide assessment results. Next is policy 5610, suspension and expulsion of students. Begins, the school board recognizes that removal from the educational programs of the school corporation, whether by suspension or expulsion, is the most severe sanction that can be imposed on a student in this corporation, and one that cannot be imposed without due process, since removal deprives a child of the right to an education. And concludes with the information, documents, ESI, and electronic media as defined by policy 8315, created or received as part of an investigation of student misconduct or disciplinary action taken shall be retained in accordance with policy 8310, policy 8315, policy 8320, policy 8330, and the corporation's records retention schedule. That was a mouthful. Okay, next is policy 6250. Required ADM counts for the purpose of state funding and verification of residency for membership. This policy begins, the school board expects enrolled students to be in regular attendance and engaged in the school corporation's education programs in accordance with the provisions of the state compulsory attendance law. Other provisions of state student attendance statutes found in Indiana Code 20-33-2 and the provisions of policy 5200 attendance. And ends with the board requires the superintendent to include in the administrative guidelines controls that clarify under what conditions a student is considered to be enrolled when participating in a virtual education program, and how much activity or progress a student must engage in to be considered in attendance. Getting close to the end. Policy 6550, travel, payment and reimbursement. Begins, travel expenses incurred for official business travel on behalf of the school corporation shall be limited to those expenses necessarily incurred by the employee in the performance of a public purpose authorized in advance in accordance with administrative guidelines. And concludes, to the extent that the corporation's policy does not establish the allowability of a particular type of travel cost, the rates and amounts established under 5 USC 5701-11, travel and subsistence expenses, mileage allowances, or by the administrator of general services or by the president or the president's designee, must apply to travel under federal awards. Policy 8120, volunteers. The school board recognizes that certain programs and activities can be enhanced through the use of volunteers who have particular knowledge or skills that will be helpful to members of the staff responsible for implementation of those programs and activities, and concludes without conferring the rights of an employee on a volunteer coach, the corporation shall comply with Indiana Code 22-5-3-1, Indiana's blacklisting law, regarding a volunteer coach, including the provisions for civil immunity regarding disclosures made about a volunteer coach. And finally, Policy 8210, school calendar. The school board recognizes that the preparation of a calendar for the instructional program of schools is necessary for orderly educational planning and for the efficient operation of the school corporation, and concludes with the superintendent shall submit to the State Department of Education the total number of actual instructional days no later than June 15th of each year. That concludes the first reading of those policies.
Wow.
You awake? Okay.
Better
Just
wipe
checking.
the sweat
Are
off
you awake
your
out there?
You did a good job, Kim.
Well, thank you.
You definitely don't have a voice for radio.
No, I don't. No, you're right. You're right about that. So.
As Bubba would say, you have a face for radio, but not your voice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ruff.
It's just a joke.
I know. It's all right.
Next on the agenda is fundraisers. So cheer clinic for ages 4th, 5th grade, February 1st, 2025. And Lions Unified T-shirt sale is January and February 2025.
Make the motion.
Becky White makes the motion. Ty will second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. 5-0. Okay. Items from staff.
Jim Martin quit talking about Purdue basketball.
Just saying, it was a clinic yesterday.
Just kidding.
Shame on you.
Glad we got one good basketball team in the state.
Transportation update.
Ed is not here, Mr. Jordan's not here, but I do want to say our bus drivers did a great job of getting where they were able to do so today, even though we do still have some streets and roads that are still slightly covered or down still to one lane, and turnarounds are still difficult, so we are still on a 2-hour delay tomorrow. We were told by all the drivers that the daylight hours helped immensely in being able to pick up our students today, and we're just so glad that they are taking so much care and bringing our students so safely. So,
Great. Non-action items? Anything? Anybody? New board business. Okay, superintendent's report.
okay, I will try to be quick since we have a lot to do. So first of all, yes, it's really great to have our students back in person. It was definitely an extended vacation that we didn't expect to be quite as big as it was, and then a little bit more over the weekend. So thank you to the crews, city, county, and our staff for clearing the streets, the sidewalks, and the parking lots so we can get back to business. We now have in-person instruction on 3 of our snow makeup days that were built into our calendar. So we'll attend school in person on 1/20, on 2/17, and 4/18. And then I also want to clarify for families, I know that it seems very confusing when we move to virtual learning, and I want to explain how that works very quickly. So, because I do know that there was some feedback on social media, and it's good to hear it straight from us. So I know that lots of people ask why we can't just have the virtual learning days where the assignments are posted and students do the assignments and turn them in digitally. Those regulations for us have changed over the last 2 years. we are only allowed 3 of those virtual learning days, and those days are called asynchronous. So that means students can learn from home, but there's not a specific schedule. There's a time frame for assignments to be turned in, but the teachers are not present teaching in real time. So we are allowed 3 of those. We have used those days. So one of those days was used when our high school had a power outage, and that counted for the district. We did apply for a waiver, but we have not heard back whether or not that day will be given back to us. Our second day was parent-teacher conferences, and then our third day was last Wednesday when we had our first day, or let's see, that would have been last Thursday, Thursday, after our 3 snow makeup days. So then we switched to synchronous learning, which I know puts lots of families over the edge, and it also brings back the fear of what we had to do during COVID. And trust me, none of us want the virtual learning. We would much rather have our students in person. That's why we used our 3 snow makeup days first, because we would prefer that our students be here in person. So synchronous learning, though, also has a lot of guidelines and regulations for us to follow. And basically, the new guidelines are you can have as many of those as you want, but it has to be live. It has to be engaged the entire time, so students and teachers do need to be on the entire time, and it needs to be half of the instructional time. So basically our elementary students need to be online for 3 hours, and our high school students need to be on about 2.5 to 3 hours. So we did come up with a very excellent schedule for our elementary students. Kindergarten's an exception. They're only on for about 35 to 40 minutes, and that's about all a kindergartner can handle. Usually about 10 to 15 is about all a kindergartner can handle. And then our elementary, what that focuses on is English language arts and mathematics, along with several breaks. And we're asked to submit some assignments while we're working. So the students do have some independent work time, and then they come back and they let their teacher know what they've completed, or they submit. And then we're also working in a choice board at the elementary with our specials teachers. So we're making sure it's something fun, something interactive. The principals were jumping into those Google Meets, and the elementary students were so excited to see their teachers. The high school schedule starts in the afternoon, and they meet with their teachers each period for 25 minutes. So they see each of their teachers, and again, it has to be engaged, live learning happening. That doesn't mean they have to talk, converse, and interact the whole time, but we do need to be involved in the entire time. So I hope that clarifies a little bit about what a synchronous learning day is and why we're doing that. And also, too, we wanted to make sure I understand when you have an elementary student and you have a high school student and everybody's trying to use the internet at the same time. That's why we divided it up and tried to flip that a little bit. And again, it is not most conducive to our students' learning, but it is something that we're faced with in order to meet our instructional time. I've also been asked, can we add more makeup days? We can. I know that the tradition has been to finish before Memorial Day here at Salem, so we would like to try to keep that intact. I know that parents and teachers both like that. And when you tack those days on to the end of the year, they're sometimes just busy work. So if we can stay busy with some meaningful learning during the snow days, we would like to continue to do that. So thank you again for your understanding. And if you have any questions about virtual learning, please feel free to reach out. I created the schedule and worked with the principals, and I can answer your questions for you. So that was one thing I wanted to share. And then we've also been made aware of the cybersecurity breach with Power School. And we're addressing that like most of the state of Indiana. We're not the only school. 75% of the state uses Power School. So we've made families and staff aware of what we know at this time. And I was just going to read quickly the letter that went out to families. On Tuesday, January 7th, Power School informed our leadership team that they experienced a cybersecurity incident involving unauthorized access to certain Power School SIS customer data. So that's our student information system. Unfortunately, they confirmed that the information does belong to Salem Community Schools, families, and educators. Power School informed us that they've taken the data. The taken data primarily includes teacher contact information and data elements such as name and address information across their customer base. They've determined for a portion of individuals some personally identifiable information, such as social security numbers, was impacted. They're working with urgency to complete their investigation and determine whether the personal information belonging to our teachers or our students was included. But I want to assure you that with our technology department, we do not store student social security numbers within Power School, And for just some of our teachers, we don't store that either, but we did have a few teachers with the last 4 of their social security number in Power School. So again, protecting our families, our teachers, we take it very seriously, and with Power School's help, we are working to bring you the information and the resources that we'll need as they become available. So just wanted to give an update on that as well. And that's very scary to hear that that's happened. We're in our second semester now, and we're ready to finish the second half of the year really strong. And January 23rd will be our 100th day of school. So that's really hard to believe. So we'll be busy in the upcoming months working on staffing, working on curriculum and opportunities for next year. And next month, along with Luke Dean, the high school principal, we're going to talk to you a little bit about the diploma redesign, which has come out. And I'm sure, Ms. Martin, you'll be called upon to help us with that as well. And that is the diploma track that's for our current 8th graders. So we'll be explaining those requirements at our next board meeting. Thanks.
All right. Positive praises. Start with Ty, since you're our...
At this time, I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm still trying to learn.
Absolutely.
A little more.
Okay.
Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Glad.
Well, I want to give a shout out to all of our maintenance and school bus drivers and staff and everybody for all that they did to get us ready and get us back to school today. And great job. And I think that that was one of the longer Christmas breaks that we've had in a few years. And so I think that the parents and everybody, I know the kids were even excited about getting back to school. So we're thankful that that could take place today. And the 2-hour delay was fantastic. And not only did it give you more daylight chances, but it also warmed up our temperatures a little bit and just gave people a little bit more time on that. So I thought that was a blessing for sure. I think the 2-hour delay is awesome. But also it was also told during the talk of the storm and getting prepared for it, that possibly if the wind and the ice took on the power lines, we might go without electricity. And so someone called me and said, would that be a possibility of the safe rooms? And I said, well, I'm not the one that would make that decision, but we are a public school. We are owned by the community, and I said I can't imagine us not. And I think we always have helped out in any situation, and it's such a blessing to know we have that. Don't pray you don't have to use it, but what a cushion and what a blessing to have a place that would be safe and warm and have a generator that we could accommodate should there be such an occasion, which we didn't have to have. But it's nice, and I had said that that and they were like, that is so great that your community, or that that we have that. So just a good reminder always. I know we all know about it, and I know I talk about it, and all of us do all the time. But very blessed to have such a thing, such a place. So anyway, a lot of good positives.
Right. Becky kind of said what I was thinking about. Of course, she already took my glory. I wanted to commend our bus drivers and Mr. Johnson for his department and how he handles everything, and our drivers very concerned and very caring, and our custodial staff. What a wonderful job they did on this campus, getting everything ready, and what a wonderful school this is.
I got a message during the meeting that how to reset the hot water heater. I live with 4 women, and so generator and a safe room is key. But yeah. So I want to thank the donations every month. I've been on the board for 6 years now, and every month we have people giving money. Some people put their name on there. It's a lot don't. And they give with generosity to the school. It's huge. Helps with a lot of programs that you don't see or hear about. The other thing is the volunteers. There's a lot of people come here and do stuff and don't get paid for it, and help out in many different facets. Friday, it was great for our kids. I have 2, a freshman and a 7th grader, both girls, who came and got their Chromebooks, and some other schools didn't have their Chromebooks at home, so that was smart thinking. The other thing is I was sending messages to Dr. Thurston and Jill the day it was snowing, because I went to work in Bedford. And I've been in the house for like a month and a half, so I have to get out of the house. So I got out of the house, but I came over here, and guess what? Our janitors were working as well. at all 3 buildings, and that's a lot of work, especially in the cold, and it just kept snowing, and as soon as they cleaned it up, it ended up being a mess again. So pretty flawless, and you guys are doing a great job. Jen, Karen, you all are doing really well. My girls talk about the lunches too. So.
And I'm just gonna, our social media, I mean, it's phenomenal, the way that they put it all out there, what's happening at school. Before Christmas, the reindeer games at the middle school and Brady Shrum, you could see that online. Just fun stuff, but you could tell staff, students were having a wonderful time. And I think the journalism class sent the lion and the Grinch to the elementary. How cute was that in those pictures? And then just all the Christmas, the guitar club played, I think, the last day of school right before break. So, but just advertising and all the things that you guys do, it's wonderful.
Did you notice all of the dual credit options that came out? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was great to see all the offerings that we have.
Yeah, just really enjoy that, so great job.
We also want to take a moment to appreciate and extend that appreciation to all of you. It is Board Appreciation Month, all the month of January. So thank you for all that you do in serving the schools and the community. So we wanted to make sure we thank you as well.
Excuse me, let me mention one thing. And of course, this gentleman was a board member for quite a few years, but Dr. Manship passed away, I believe, yesterday. Saturday. So I just want to make mention of that, and I'll keep the family in our prayers.
Okay, next regular monthly meeting is February 10th here. We need a motion to adjourn. Johnny makes the motion, Becky seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand. Same sign. Okay.